Hello and welcome. We're back. It's Burke Granger and myself, Patrick Ebert. We're here for the 2026 college baseball season. This is the first episode of Big Baseball and Beyond. First of all, most importantly, Burke, welcome back. Happy to have you. How you been?
That is the most important, welcoming me, Patrick. So I appreciate that. I've been great, buddy. How about you? I missed talking to you every week, hopping on and talking baseball. So it's good to be that time of year again.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is the time of year, we think about like the whole fall and winter. We catch our breaths, after the long spring and then we just want to get back to this point. Obviously 2 weeks ago, where were you at? You were down in Louisville. I was down in Arizona, so we were in warmer and I don't know how the weather was for you, but slightly warmer climates
It was
for the
better. It was
first
better
for the
than
first
here.
weekend of the season. So yeah, that was very much welcome. So good to see you. Good to talk to you, my friend. Little housekeeping item. We're going to talk a little big baseball and beyond. If you've been following us, first of all, thank you. Second of all, this is going to be a Big Ten only podcast this year. Last year we kind of dabbled all over the Midwest, as you may know. If you follow Burke and myself, we are based in the Midwest, and he kind of covers the Burke kind of covers the eastern half of the Midwest. I kind of cover the western half of the Midwest. But really, we don't really have boundaries. I write a lot about mid-major programs. Burke likes to prospect hunt, as he did last weekend when he went down to Tennessee to see Kent State take that series, which was pretty exciting. But we're not going to talk about that because that's not Big Ten centric. What we are going to talk about is the Big Ten, which is off to a absolutely fantastic start. We did not do a preview show this year. Oh, go ahead, Burke.
Yeah, let me interject. So not only will this format be Big Ten centric, I want to point out it won't be on the podcast feed. Uh, it won't be on that D1 podcast feed where you get all the other great shows. Our bosses came to us and said, Burke, and then to a lesser extent, Patrick, you guys are far too handsome to be on an audio medium only. So we're going to put you guys on YouTube and social media. So that's where you'll be seeing our pretty mugs from here on out.
Yeah, it's 100% just to get those Instagram clips of our faces. So, and
Yes.
talking just such like amazingly eloquent comments about college baseball. So that's a good interjection, Burke. Thank you. So, but yeah, we did not have a preseason show. We ran into some technical difficulties. We were all busy cranking out conference previews, and as I'm sure you can imagine, that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. But here we are now. We just finished the second weekend of the 2026 college baseball team, and UCLA, the Big Ten version of the UCLA Bruins, opened the year and continue to be the number one team in the nation. They recently swept previously number 7 TCU. They did that in Los Angeles, and yeah, Burke, this team is rolling. Like if you look at all the numbers, I don't think they've. I don't think they've committed an error yet through 7 games. They
Yeah.
brought 8 of 9 position players back. They added a legitimate staff ace to their squad. Will Gasparino, another portal pickup, was did I say that right? Gasparino,
Yeah, I think so.
another portal pickup. He was recently just named the Big Ten Player of the Week. Um, and then they got this guy named Rock, Rock Chalowski playing shortstop, and he already has 6 home runs, as does Gasparino. So, this team is firing at all cylinders right out of the gates. Burke, you're going to see in them a couple weeks. Well, what do you see so far, and what are you most looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to seeing them. They're going to open up conference play here in Columbus against Ohio State. So just when you talk about UCLA, look at the first sentence of their top 25 capsule in our preseason coverage. They returned 86% of their plate appearances and 78% of their innings from an Omaha team last year. So that's going to get you top billing. And then when you add to that, you get a second round pick to campus. They get a frontline guy like Logan Redmond from San Diego, who's a power arm and fills the strike zone. And then they go get Will Gasparino from Texas, and he's got a 1779 OPS with 3 home runs already. There's some swing and miss in his profile, but you can expect those numbers to kind of improve against Big Ten pitching. So, and then also just look at our draft rankings, our prospect rankings in the Big Ten preview. 5 of the top 7 2026 prospects were UCLA guys. The top 2 guys in the 2027 class in the Big Ten are UCLA guys. freshman player of the year. We had UCLA guys, and they had 3 or 4 guys in the discussion for preseason pitcher of the year. So this is just a loaded team, and they're playing to expectation, probably better than expectation. When you think about what was that last year, who the preseason number 1 was Texas A&M. And I think there was a lot of jockeying for position in those first few weeks where the teams we thought were going to be at the top, it didn't play out that way. UCLA looks as advertised so far this year.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I think that, that TCU series was pretty loud. They opened the year, they went 2-1 at UC San Diego. I actually saw a couple publications knocked UCLA out of the top spot just because they went 2-1 and LSU went 3-0. And, certainly it's subjective rankings, that there's not a science really to this. There's a lot of opinion. But, if I give Aaron Kendall, Joe, Runes, those guys, Bradley, all the credit in the world for keeping UCLA at the top and not making that knee-jerk reaction. Just because it's pretty clear they are, in my opinion, and I may be biased because we cover the Big Ten, but we're talking about a team in Los Angeles, right? So not in the normal Big Ten footprint. They just looked like they don't have flaws at this point in time. We've said that before. We've only played 2 weeks, there's a lot of season left. So they obviously need to sustain that. And they have a huge test coming up this week. I think they play Tennessee on Friday as part of, I think that's the Amergy College Baseball Series or whatever that is.
Tennessee team is what.
Yeah, Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you just saw them. So they have a huge test this weekend. And to the Big Ten's credit, I don't think people give it enough credit, to be honest. I saw some of the preseason conversations around UCLA talking about, are they going to see enough power arms in the Big Ten to be able to compete once the postseason hits? And I don't know. I don't really buy that argument at all. So not sure if you have an opinion on that, Burke.
I mean, I think there are arms in the Big Ten that are legit. I think you saw a couple in week 1 in particular. But yeah, just the poll mechanics, and I'm glad you and I don't have to get bogged down in polls, but I don't see how you could think about dropping the number 1 team after beating a top 10 opponent, taking 2 of 3 from a top 10 opponent. We play this sport to win series. Sweeps are nice. Obviously sweeps are great, but you win the series, I don't think you should be punished for it.
Absolutely. Agree 100%. And Burke, we're right kind of back where we were at the end of the regular season last year, in that it's the West Coast version of the Big West that's really dominating for the first 2 weeks. And I want to talk about USC next. This team is 7-0, and they're really getting the job done on the mound. That's what's really making the difference for this team. I think it's Grant Govell. Not really sure if you know how to pronounce that name, but we'll go with Grant Govell right now. He's their Saturday starter. His first outing of the year, he pitched the first 6 innings of a combined no-hitter on the very second day of the season. And Mason Edwards, the left-hander, their ace, their numbers are almost exactly the same. They've yet to give up a run. Edwards has 11 innings. Govell has 12. Edwards has struck out 20. Govell has struck out 21. You get the picture, right? They're dominant. And then you come back with Andrew Johnson on Sunday, who doesn't throw as hard as those guys. He usually sits in the upper 80s, but he commands it really well. And you have possibly the best starting rotation in the Big Ten, and that includes UCLA. So the thing with USC right now, their bats are a little slow to get going. They're hitting 246 as a team right now. But that's going to change. And when I didn't write the fall report on USC, but I did do the preview for the Big Ten preview on USC. And the more research I did on them, the more I ended up liking about them. And I was just because that first week, we kind of had them on the bubble of making it to the postseason just based on what they lost last year. Yep. And the more I learned about them, I'm like, oh man, this team's going to be good. And, their head coach, Andy Stankiewicz, one of the best of the business. I don't know. I'm not surprised by this early season start at 7-0, and they got a big test this week. They travel up to Cal Poly, another really good team, and that'll be a fascinating series to watch.
You mentioned Coach Stankiewicz. I'm going to give a shout out to Coach Sean Allen. You praised the pitching staff, but that pitching staff is punching out 14.4 per 9 innings right now. They got 80 strikeouts in 50 innings. That'll play, right?
Yeah.
You could hit 240 as a team and win games when you're pitching it that well. So obviously got to get the bats going, but USC looks they look the part so far. As you said, big test coming up, and we'll know a lot more after this coming weekend against Cal Poly.
You know who else is undefeated? That'd be Oregon, and they were not ranked to enter the year. They're still not ranked. They're 8-0 though, and they're not going to be ranked because they've beat George Mason and Youngstown State. So, with all due respect to those two programs, you gotta have headline series victories to force your way into the top 25. They're going to get that chance this weekend in Las Vegas. Burke, I know you wrote up Oregon for the Big Ten preview. I know you saw them last year. What can you tell me about the Ducks?
So if I had one question mark about Oregon, it was, what's the pitching staff going to look like? Because they lost some big arms from last year. Grayson Grinsell was one of the best Friday guys in the conference. Jason Reitz got drafted. Cole Stokes transferred. But their team ERA is 2.25 with a 152 batting average against. The weekend rotation of Will Sanford, Cal Scolari, and Colin Clark have combined to give up 3 earned runs in 2 weekends. So when you do that, that's a pretty good recipe for success. Offensively, Drew Smith has 18 RBIs in 8 games. That's tied for 3rd in the country. And as you said, they'll get the big test this weekend in Las Vegas when they play Arizona, a struggling Arizona team, but also got Irvine and Vandy. So, and then a midweek game right after that against Oregon State. So, big test in these next 4 games for the Ducks. And if they come out, 3-1 in those games, I expect to see them in the top 25 next week.
Yeah, they were a team right on the cusp coming into the year. And I know when the gang, they shared that top 25 and then the next 10 to 15 teams, whatever that is, they were definitely in that grouping. And I know your impression was the same because they did need to prove that what they lost, that they could overcome that. And through the first 8 games, obviously that they've done exactly that. So Burke, the rest of the Big Ten, we're going to go a little quick hitter now. Like we wanted to focus a little more on UCLA, USC, Oregon, just given how dominant those 3 West Coast teams are. But, I saw Michigan opening day, take down Oregon State. And, we saw Nebraska beat Florida State yesterday. We saw Illinois beat Coastal Carolina yesterday. We saw Purdue beat Oregon State yesterday. Oregon State got beat again by a Big Ten team. So there's a lot of positive momentum in this league. And I want to start. I'm going to start with Minnesota because they started the year 3-0 in DeLand, Florida. It was a tournament hosted by Stetson. They beat Stetson, St. John's, and Ball State. And then this past weekend, they played Northeastern twice and beat them both times by a pretty favorable margin. They're batting over 300 as a team. They've drawn a little buzz. Their Saturday starter, Isaac Morton, used to be at Texas A&M. Always had a big arm, but now he's starting to throw strikes. He throws 94, 97. I hope to see him this coming weekend up in Minneapolis. But Minnesota start's been impressive. They played Kansas 4 times this week. They're kind of going home, and they have kind of a 2-week stretch here where they're going to play at US Bank Stadium, home of the Vikings. And I really like what I've seen from them so far. It's been a real positive story. You and I have talked in the offseason that Minnesota, if a few things go right for them, one being depth. They had 0 depth last year. They have better depth this year. A few things go right for them this year. They're gonna make their way back into the Big Ten tournament. Maybe not just make it back in the Big Ten tournament, but be in like the middle of the pack of the Big Ten. Those are my takes on Minnesota. Burke, I'm going to throw it over to you about Michigan, another team I know you wrote up in the offseason.
And I had Michigan as my non-field of 64 sleeper in our preseason coverage, our bold predictions. So they're making me look smart, which is difficult to do. My reasoning for that pick was the pitching depth. They've already beat Oregon State, Stanford, Arizona, and Louisville. So that's a pretty good resume 2 weeks into the season. Cade Montgomery, the Utah Tech transfer, has wins against Stanford and Louisville. Gavin DeVote, who missed a lot of last year. He was an Ohio State transfer and then was hurt for most of the year last year. He did start the first few weeks, but he's kind of assumed that closer role. He's got 3 saves already and 4 scoreless appearances. Offensively, Colby Turner and Brendan Stressler have been leading the charge, and they're fielding it at a pretty high clip. I was a little concerned about how they would field it. It's a brand new infield for them. 4 new guys in the infield. and they're fielding at a 980 level, which that's kind of the high mark for success. If you can field at 980 or better, your chances of success go up exponentially. And so they've done that. They're playing kind of complete baseball. I've seen a lot of guys in the bullpen are getting good quality innings. Who's the freshman lefty that you saw a couple weeks ago?
Shane Brenham.
Yeah, he's looked terrific so far. So arrow pointing up in Ann Arbor. Michigan's been a fun team to watch.
Just quickly on Michigan, just following their like social media and everything in the offseason, they had a lot of hype for Shane Brenham, in the offseason. So it was clear they really liked him. And so when he came into that game on the first day of the season, I was excited to see what he was all about. So, and certainly justified that hype. I'm going to switch it back over to Illinois. And yesterday, I think I mentioned before, they took down then number 6 Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina's currently playing without their 4 best pitchers, but still, this game was in Conway, South Carolina. Coastal Carolina was in the College World Series Finals a year ago, and just one of the best teams in the nation. Mid-major or not, they're just that good. And Illinois, took it to them. They took it to them pretty well. And Kyle Remington, the Minnesota transfer, was great and out of relief. And freshman first baseman AJ Putty hit a first inning grand slam. I think he had 7 total RBIs. I think he may have already had a couple doubles in that game yesterday too. So, and they did all this for head coach Dan Hartlib's 600th win as Illinois' head coach. So congratulations to Coach Hartlib. That's an incredible milestone win. And Coach Hartlib was last week named to be the manager of the collegiate national team this summer. So big week for Illinois. Yeah. It's great to see a little Midwest flavor. He's been an assistant on that team a couple times before, but he's never been the head coach. So that's just a great for Illinois, great for Coach Hartlib. Burke, why don't you tell me about Purdue? I already mentioned what they did this weekend, but I'm sure you got more to add to that.
Yeah, going 2-1 in the Round Rock with a walk-off win on Saturday against Baylor. CJ Richmond, their big first baseman, he's a former MACtion star, and I'm never going to miss an opportunity to plug the MAC. So he hit like 80 RBIs at Western Michigan 2 years ago. Last year was slowed by a broken hamate bone. He's slugging 769 this spring, had 4 RBIs in that win against Baylor. And then one guy who's getting a lot of love from D1 baseball is Weston Boyle. KR tweeted about him a bunch. Rooney was talking about him on the Weekend Recap podcast. Coach Goff was really high on this kid, freshman shortstop. He started out hot. He's hitting close to 500, and he's showing some extra base pop. On the mound, Texas Tech transfer Zach Erdman has been a bright spot. And then Jarvis Evans was got a big performance against Oregon State in that win. So Purdue, I think we predicted them to be second last in the Big Ten. And gosh, it's hard with some of these teams like Purdue, Michigan State, had a big weekend. And Ohio State we had down there. These are teams that I like certain aspects, but I think there's a lot of talent in that bottom third of the league when we're trying to handicap it. So the Boilermakers are playing above expectation right now, but you got to give them credit for it. I think they've been impressive so far.
Yeah, kind of like to your point about the ranking the Big Ten, it's never easy every year, but this year especially, like you kind of get the sense that each one of these teams had the chance to be better than what they were a year ago. And again, it's early, but 2 weeks into it, some of these teams are beating some pretty high level opponents. Jarvis Evans, I just want to point out, he retired 14 straight batters at one point between the 2nd and 7th innings yesterday against the Oregon State Beavers. So that's pretty impressive. Also impressive, Iowa, that they've gone 2-1 each weekend. They're coming off a series win against Florida Atlantic. The first weekend they spent in Arizona, and they took down a couple of good teams down there. And coming into the year, we didn't really know what to expect of Iowa's pitching staff. They lost, I think, something like 430 something innings or something like that. And they got about half their lineup back, led by second baseman and leadoff hitter Gable Mitchell, who's off to a fantastic start. But, when you talk about Iowa baseball, Heller ball, like they do the fundamentals so well. They stress the importance of team defense and advancing on the base paths, going from first to third to get guys in scoring position. But they're down 2 of their top arms. I actually talked to Coach Heller this morning, and he talked about it looks like mean, this isn't 100% confirmed, but their freshman left-hander Brody Earlbeck is probably out for the year. Their Saturday guy, a Florida international transfer, Logan Rundy, was pulled from his start on this past Saturday. They hope that it's not serious. It didn't. I'm not even sure if he's going to make his start this coming week. They have to figure that part out. But they were already a little thin on pitching, and they're going to be a little more thin. They actually are at the Frisco Classic this weekend, so things don't get easier for them. But they're playing really good baseball, and they're just getting the job done like they always do. Last year we thought they could take a step back. They didn't have Brody Brecht and that whole crew of live arm horses that they had from the previous year, but they proved obviously to stay on top of the Big Ten pretty much up until the second to last weekend of the year. So Iowa Hawkeyes look like they're doing what they always do, and they're just playing good baseball and having success. Speaking of that, Burke, you saw Michigan State the first weekend of the year. I know you just mentioned them, but they took 2 of 3 from Louisville that first weekend. Didn't bounce back the greatest against Texas, but still impressive start for the Spartans.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is Louisville was a top 10 opponent when they went down there to face them, and Michigan State had not been outside until they got to Louisville and took batting practice the day before the series started. So to come out of that series on the road against a top 10 opponent, got to give them credit. Now, the bad news is since they clinched that series, because they won the first 2 games. So since they won that series on that Saturday of opening weekend, they've scored 3 runs in 4 games. Swept by Texas over the weekend, but 2 of those games were competitive. Some of the bright spots have been Carter Monk, the Illinois State transfer. He was a veteran with a lot of innings under his belt. He's kind of assumed the Saturday role and is just kind of eating up innings in that Saturday spot. If you would have had me bet the farm on one thing that Michigan State was going to do in 2026, I would have said, well, obviously Nolan Higgins is going to be in the rotation because he started like 14 games last year, right behind Joe Jerwa. Nolan Higgins, pencil him in. Well, I was wrong. He's going to be a reliever, a high leverage reliever. And he was a guy who I was pretty impressed with on opening weekend, came out of the pen in a kind of a fireman role. The fastball was up to 96. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to kind of utilize him. Just if he's one of their best arms, they're going to use him in the most high leverage spots. And I don't disagree with that. So, whereas last year, the thing that I found most interesting about Michigan State was from a scheduling perspective. Last year, they kind of got off to a hot start, leveled off, but their hot start was against teams like Western Michigan, Monmouth, and these non-conference neutral sites to open the season. This year, they're like, screw that. We're going to challenge ourselves from day one. We're going to go down to Louisville opening weekend. We're going to follow that up by going to Austin, Texas, to take on the Longhorns. And yeah, they're 2-4, but I think that galvanizes them and gets them ready for a conference play. And I think they're going to be a dangerous team. Offensively, they haven't really got things going, but Randy Seymour had a big weekend when I was there. Ryan McKay's kind of their best offensive player. He's yet to really kind of step up and carry that team on his back like he's capable of. So I think they're going to be a pesky team to play against in Big Ten play. There's no easy weekends in Big Ten, in my opinion.
Burke, you brought up an excellent point. I think that's one I was going to mention this towards the end of the show, but I think it's a good time to add it is, these teams, obviously all of them are scheduling more aggressively early in the year, like across the board. The Big Ten is just, they're playing the tougher opponents. And this year, they're having success with it. But that was something all the teams, when they got together in the offseason during the Big Ten meetings, they challenged each other like, hey, we need to do this collectively. We need to schedule more aggressively. Otherwise, we can't raise the profile of this conference. This is the teams believe they should be getting, 7 teams into the NCAA tournament. And if you're not a follower of the Big Ten, you probably laugh at that statement. And I'm not supporting that they should get 7 teams, at least not recently. That's where they want to get to. And I think right now, like in that 5 to 7 team conversation, that's where they want to be. It's a 17-team league, and they are considered a power conference. So, the Big 12, I mean, if you said the same thing for them, people wouldn't bat an eyelash at it. So it's good to see, and it's raising the entire bar for the Big Ten Conference. So I'm gonna move on, unless you have anything to add to that. I'm gonna move on to Nebraska. And this is a team that right now they're 4-3, but they've beaten UConn, Northeastern, Grand Canyon, and yesterday they took down Florida State. And I was pretty high on this team coming into the year. They had some interesting pieces returning, one of which was Dylan Carey, their shortstop, and he is off to a phenomenal start. He's batting .455 with 3 home runs, a lot of extra base hits, a lot of RBIs, a lot of run production. But it's the pitching staff that once again has caught my attention. Ty Horn's doing what he does, and Carson Yasa, they're who I call Jacob Mizorowski kind of light. I got to see him on the second day of the season, and 6'7", 185, coming at just slightly lower slot, and it's just electric. Like, he was up to 98, he was sitting 96, and had a slider, had a changeup, but and you could tell watching him pitch that it's still coming together for him. He worked really hard on the slider and the command to actually pitch backwards at time and help his fastball play up. So when he gets ahead in the count, he's not as afraid just to climb the ladder and make someone chase a 98 mile per hour fastball. Like, my goodness, it was an impressive look. And it's back-to-back starts now on Saturdays that he's had that have been encouraging to see his development. So I think Nebraska with guys like that, with returning players like Dylan Carey, Joshua Overbeek, their entire infield is loaded, and they can really go fly in the outfield too. I think this is one of the more well-balanced and complete teams in the Big Ten in all phases of the game.
I want to just piggyback on your comments about Carson Yasa, because watching, just seeing your video that you had on social media a couple weekends ago, I was just, it's a unique profile, right? With that kind of length, that lanky body, but the arm stroke is short. Like, for how big those arms are, he almost throws it like a catcher, just firing it from the ear. Which when you're getting up to 98 like that has to be deceptive to hitters. Like, that has to come at hitters. It's like a pitching machine that just boom, light comes on, ball comes at you. Like, and it's coming from someone who's 6'7". Like, that type of pitching profile is super intriguing to me. And when I see teams like that, it's made me want to go hunt out a Nebraska game and try to catch Yasa for a game. You already covered him greatly, but selfishly, I want to see him too.
No, you should. Yeah. I mean, the thing that I shared in that post is, like, to your point, just how easy it was. I mean, he just flipped the ball. Like, it's like watching a quarterback when they go deep and, like, like someone like Aaron Rodgers, who all he like just flicks his wrist and the ball goes 50 yards. Like, that's what you're watching with Yasa. And it's just such easy 98. No doubt in my mind this guy's going to touch 100, if not 103, in the not-so-distant future. So, all right, Burke.
You're going to give me a Packers comp, your Wisconsin.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I was going to say Jordan Love, but, I know he likes to beat up on the Cowboys, and I didn't want to rub that in. So, but now I did.
Fair.
So
fair. You still managed to get it in there. Nice one.
Yep. Yes. I'll save you by turning our attention to Rutgers. I know this is this is a program we both like. Big fan of Steve Owens and the job that he's done turning that program around and making them more of a perennial competitor in the Big Ten. But yeah, I'll stop talking so you can. So tell me about Rutgers.
Yeah, Rutgers took 3 of 4 on opening weekend against the College of Charleston, and then a big series against Virginia Tech. They won 16-1 on Friday night, and then they managed to lose the next 2. It would have been a really nice series win if they could have pulled off one more game. We knew Peyton Bonds was going to be good. He's hitting .441 with 4 stolen bases out of the leadoff spot. Charlie Megalo, the Campbell transfer, has a 1250 OPS with 3 homers. I want to give a shout out to Joe Mazda, who came out of the bullpen on Friday night against Virginia Tech in that win. 3 1/3 scoreless innings of work, 6 Ks, no walks. Like, their starter, I think he only went 3 1/3 that game. Like, when you don't get length out of your starter and you need a guy to kind of bridge the gap to the back end, man, 3 1/3 scoreless, not giving up any free passes and punching out 6. Like, if you could bundle that coaches want that out of their first guy out of the pen on Friday nights. Like, you could sell that on Amazon for $1,000 a pop. Like those guys are not they're not a dime a dozen. They're rare. They're diamonds in the rough, and you got to find guys like that. So, and he had two kind of subpar outings leading up to that one. So that's a nice one to put under his belt, and hopefully a sign of things to come for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Good team. I always like watching Rutgers play. We're going to finish this with kind of rapid fire back and forth. I'm going to talk about Northwestern. That first weekend they lost a series at Rice, but then they rebounded really nicely this weekend and went 4-0, which included a couple of wins over Boston College. So when you're talking about Northwestern, even going into the season, it's the offense that you get most excited about watching. They really do have a loaded lineup, and their right fielder Jackson Freeman is off to just a torrid start. He's batting .438. He's got 3 home runs, 25 total bases, just doing a really good job. Noah Ruiz, one of their transfers in, is also having a good start to the season, and those two aren't the only one. And the pitching's actually been playing at a pretty high level too. And similar to Minnesota, this is a team you just kind of assume it's Northwestern, right? And if you watch football or whatever, and they'll have a good year and then they'll be down for 5 or whatever, and they kind of do that up and down. But Northwestern baseball has been competitive for quite some time, and they hit that kind of down cycle a couple of years ago. And I'm not even going to get into it, but their previous head coach, there's some not so great stuff going on within the actual athletic department, and it was happening with the football program at the same time. And they had a lot of players transfer, the coaches completely left, and Ben Greenspan has come in and just done a phenomenal job kind of building that program back from the bottom up, and doing so with some serious restrictions, because Northwestern is one of the finest universities in the entire nation. So they have difficulty just bringing whoever they want onto campus. You gotta be the smartest kid in the room, basically, in your class to go to Northwestern. So I've been really excited to see the success they've had. I'm especially excited. I think it's in 2 or 3 weeks they host USC, so it's going to give me a chance to see both those teams, which I'm really excited about seeing both of them. Like Mason Edwards on Friday night, yes please, and the lineups and all that stuff. So I'll be doing that a couple Fridays from now down in Chicago. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Now, you're only an hour away from Chicago. Will you stay the weekend for that one, or you go home and sleep in your own bed between games?
TBD. So it's an hour and a half. Not that half hour makes a big difference.
It does in Chicago traffic. It does make a difference.
So the nice thing about Evanston, where Northwestern is, it's on the north side of Chicago.
True.
So you don't get into the heart of the Chicago traffic just traveling there. Now, that said, anywhere around Chicago at the wrong time of day is a bad idea. So I've intentionally left for road trips at in the middle of the night, just so I can just zoom through Chicago so you don't have to deal with traffic. Because if I want to go to Notre Dame, if I want to go to Purdue, if I want to go to anywhere in Indiana, Illinois, so on and so forth, I need to go through Chicago, and that's not always fun. So it's a good point. But as of right now, I'm thinking spending the night, because then that way I can come home, right, or go to the room, right, video, go back to the game, and then just come home. So just a one-night stay for 2 games of action. So
yeah, I think you should stay. Enjoy the city, enjoy the sights, go to the museum, take a walk along the lake. Say
goodbye to Soldier Field.
Yeah. It's coming. It'll be closer to me than it will be to you here pretty soon.
I know. See, I'm going to take another shot, even though I know you don't root for the Bears, but I look forward to watching some of my friends root for the Gary Bears. So that'll be an interesting experiment. So
yeah, you
go Chicago. All right, looking ahead, Burke. Some big matchups. We've already talked about a few of them. We're gonna kind of lead our way to wrapping up with this kind of segment here. Some big tournaments. UCLA is at Globe Life. Oregon is in Las Vegas. Ohio State's in Houston. Rutgers is at the LeClaire Classic in Greenville, North Carolina. And Iowa's at Frisco. Series, Nebraska's at Auburn. Minnesota hosts Kansas at US Bank Stadium. Northwestern's at Georgia Tech. USC's at Cal Poly. Indiana's at Western Kentucky. This is a loaded weekend once more for Big Ten baseball. And I really hope you and I are sitting right here next week at this time having the same conversation.
I hope so too. I'll tell you what, I was Googling the drive to Atlanta to potentially check out Northwestern and Georgia Tech just a few hours ago, because I was tempted to be like, that looks like a fun one. But I think I might be headed. I'm gonna center my weekend around Indiana at Western Kentucky. They have a 4-game series, including a doubleheader on Saturday. Just two fun. That's one of those series I circled when the schedules came out. Just two kind of fun programs. I've only been to Western Kentucky once to catch a game, and I enjoyed it. So, and then I might build in some side missions. There's some other action going on in the Midwest. Not a ton, but some intriguing games that I might check out depending on pitching matchups, obviously. So that'll be a Thursday game time decision when those social media posts start happening about what the pitching rotations are going to be. But as of now, I'm thinking I'm going to be in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is the alma mater of John Carpenter, the director of Halloween and The Thing, other great horror movies. I'm a big horror movie fan. John Carpenter, shout out. Bowling Green, Kentucky, Western Michigan University. So yeah, that's my long-winded tangent of where I might be and what I'm looking forward to this coming weekend.
Are you staying at the John Carpenter bed and breakfast then?
I might. There's also a Corvette museum right off the interstate there.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Going to.
I passed that.
Yeah. You pass it like on your way to Vanderbilt. Like that's how
right.
I know Bowling Green, Kentucky is. It's an hour north of Nashville, but it's a nice little town. So
there's a great billboard near there because like Kentucky's all about Abraham Lincoln, you know.
Yes.
And so it's like the Lincoln Hotel, the Lincoln Rest Stop, Lincoln, and then like over on like the Appalachian Mountains where you hit that stretch, there's a billboard that says Abraham Lincoln. Like it was a billboard for a hotel, and it just said Abraham Lincoln never stayed here, but you can. And I was just like, we're staying at that hotel. I don't care if it's a stabbing cabin. I'm staying at that hotel.
You mentioned Andrew Johnson, who was Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president. You mentioned Andrew Johnson, who was the 17th president, the first one to be impeached. And I tried to stay away from presidential trivia on this podcast. But if you're gonna talk presidents, I can't stop. I got to bring that up.
I had no clue you were going to go there. Like I just mentioned Abraham Lincoln, and then you're going trivia on me. So
I was biting my tongue when you mentioned Andrew Johnson earlier.
I think I can name 1, 3, 16, and then whoever it is now. So then I'm good. So yeah.
Well, if Western Kentucky rolls out a reliever named Ulysses S. Grant, that's going to be a big segment next week.
Yes, with some giant beard, some Civil War attire.
Yeah. Yes. Give me a Howard Taft type body in center field. I want to see that.
Now catching.
We're getting off the rails. That's my fault.
Yes, we are. Yes,
That's my fault.
No. I'll assume blame too. So Burke, I'm heading up to Minneapolis. I do this once a year. I pick a series. They play at US Bank Stadium, home of the Minnesota Vikings, another NFL team that sucks. And they're playing Kansas. They're hosting Kansas for 4 games. And it's kind of interesting. They play Wednesday for their midweek, and then they play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'm going to head up for Friday and Saturday's game. I'm really hoping I get to see both teams' Friday and Saturday starters. Dominic Vogelé with Kansas is of a special interest for me, just starting with his pretty remarkable freshman season. And then, of course, Isaac Morton for Texas A&M. He pitched yesterday, Sunday, this past weekend, but that's because they played Northeastern on Saturday, Sunday. So if I had to guess, they're going to go back, but I'm going to be like you, where I'm going to be waiting for like Thursday, keeping my fingers crossed that the arms I want to see are going on the days that I want them to go. So, but yeah,
I was going to say, I'd imagine you and I will be texting each other and running travel scenarios by one another by later this week when we're figuring out where we're going to be.
Right.
As per usual.
As per usual. Yeah, but I'll be watching baseball indoors at US Bank Stadium, and I love it. It's great. If you know the Midwest, I share the pictures, and people will respond to my post saying, what the hell is that?
It looks weird.
It looks weird, but just being inside this colossal NFL stadium, and when it's 35 degrees outside and it's perfectly toasty inside, there's no better place to be. So,
well, I'll be cold. can't complain about the weather as much so far. 2 weeks in, knock on wood. I'm sure I just jinxed this for the rest of the spring, but I've been in hoodies at the games and been damn near comfortable. So we'll see how it goes from here on out. But I can't complain about the weather so far in February in the Midwest. Well, I've been in Tennessee and Kentucky, but it's not that far south.
Yeah, I was in Phoenix week 1, so I mean, I was in a wife beater and short shorts, so like it was pretty damn nice. But I'm with you. All right, Burke, I think that's a wrap for this week. I want to thank you for your time as always and insight. It's always a joy talking baseball with you. I want to thank our followers for watching. Thank you so much for waiting for us to get our first podcast of the year off the ground. But until next time, he's Burke Granger. I'm Patrick Ebert, and this is Big Baseball and Beyond, a D1 baseball podcast.